Okay, so before the chair calls the meeting to order, we would just like to welcome our new member, Wendy Alexander. So the Board of Variance has now changed its composition slightly. We have Christopher Hall as the chair of the Board of Variance, Rick Jones as a longstanding, respected and appreciated member, and our new member, Wendy Alexander. Daniel Martin is here as a staff resource. He's the manager of planning and development, and Drew Backen is our island community planner. He'll be doing the presentation. We have lots of people from, we have an architect in the room and a developer and neighbors who will all be providing public comments. The chair has decided that while a time limit is general good practice on speakers, the board is quite keen to receive the information as thoroughly as possible. So there'll be discretion. Yes. Did I call you the architect? I'm sorry. Okay, and Fitz DeVries is here as the applicant, my mistake. Okay, I think that's okay for housekeeping. As I mentioned, we have a speakers list and the chair at discretion will decide on that timing. So the chair can call the meeting to order.
So I'd like to call the meeting to order and introduce the minutes of the July 28th, 2023 Board of Variance meeting, which are included with the public information package. And I won't read those out unless anybody wants to, but would someone like to, what do you call that? Move and second. Do I have a second? Andy, would you like to second that?
Yeah.
Okay, and anyone opposed? All in agreement? Agreement. So that's carried unanimously. So the first order of business on the new case here is public comments on.
We're gonna have the present and public comments will take place after.
Oh,
That's
okay. I was just going by the order of
Yeah, that's just a
agenda.
indicating that we're varying from the normal procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Drew, would you like to present your case?
Sure. Thank you. So Bowen Island Municipality has received an application to the Board of Variance from Fitz DeVries to request a reduction of the minimum required setback from the natural boundary of the sea for a retaining wall at 235 Shore Lane. The property is 949 square meters in size and is located in the Comprehensive Development Zone, which is CD6, Area 9B. The property is currently under development with a single-family dwelling having been partially constructed on the lands. The section of the land use bylaw requested to be varied is section 3.28, that retaining walls not exceeding a height of 1.5 meters may be sited on any portion of a lot subject to setbacks to the sea, lakes, watercourses, and wetlands. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum setback from the natural boundary of the sea for a retaining wall 2.4 meters high. The application states that while some form of rocks stack retaining wall was already reportedly intended for the strata subdivision, it was determined during the design phase for a new residence on the property that a vertical concrete poured in place retaining wall would increase the usable garden space and would also retain the strata visitor parking area. A volumetric easement was registered on lot H for the retaining wall. The application cites the following hardships as reason for the requested variance. One, the home was designed over 2 years ago when a 2.5 meter high retaining wall was permitted by Bowen Island Municipality's land use bylaw. Two, a 2.4 meter high retaining wall is required to provide a level strata visitor parking area at the top of the wall and a level garden area at the bottom of the wall. And third reason, that the ongoing application process delayed issuance of a building permit for the retaining wall, causing construction coordination and scheduling issues. Notice of the variance application was published in 3 weeks of the undercurrent preceding the meeting, was posted to the municipal website and mailed to adjacent neighbors. Letters were received from 3 landowners, one in support of the application and the other 2 expressing opposition. To clarify, while I've attached, while those attached emails are listed in the attachment as letters from neighbors, to clarify, the letter of support comes from a landowner who does not live in the direct vicinity. Those letters of opposition state concerns based around the impact that they feel the retaining wall will have on the oceanfront views from their properties, as well as disputing the applicant's stated reasons for the variance application and the status of the strata's approval of the design. Finally, the Local Government Act legislation that applies to Board of Variance decisions is laid out at the end of the report. This mandate can lay out a decision criteria for the Board of Variance to use while deciding on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. So what's next?
So next we will have the public opportunity to speak to the board. Our first speaker is Ron. Step back, please.
Do I come up?
Yes, please.
Okay, stay here.
Do I still on the screenshot?
What's that?
Do I stay on the screenshot?
Do members of the board require anything from the presentation, or can we, let's unshare? We can pull it back up if needed.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking time to hear me today. I appreciate that. All I wanted to bring up is I've sent lots of paperwork in, and what I just wanted to do is just clarify a couple of the documents that I did provide you with before you make your decisions today. And one of them on the application and the agenda, I noted that the Local Government Act, Section 541, number 1 was mentioned on the act, but it doesn't mention point 2, which says clearly that the board must not make an order, subsection 1, if in conflict with a covenant registered under Section 219 of the Land Title Act. So I noticed that accidentally it's probably left off of both the application and on the agenda today, but it's very clear in that same rule that that's mentioned. I wanted to let you know that I had provided you a copy of the restrictive covenant, and for your ease, it was on 173 of 364 pages of the building agenda today. So I provided a copy of that covenant, which is registered. And I've also provided, there's on the schedule of restrictions improvement, there's a definition. There's also definitions you get from the library, or I should say from a dictionary or whichever. But in our building disclosure statement, we were provided an improvement, which means any building or structure, including landscaping and fences, are the things that were excluded from that area. So including landscaping and fences. And really, that was all I just wanted to clarify. Once again, that was on page 43 of 364 of the building of the agenda today. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Next on our speakers list, we have Brent Muter, who will be joining us via Zoom, and I think he's just listening in now. There he is.
Does that show up on here?
He will when he gets in. So I want to do a sip of water.
Who is this?
He's a man.
He resident?
His name is Brent Muter. That's all I guess.
He's a resident of the property of my neighbors.
Okay, here he is. Brent, I need you to put yourself on the camera, please. If you can hear me.
Yep.
Hi. So you're next up for public comments. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Dear committee members, thank you for providing an opportunity to speak today. My name is Brent Muter and I live at 242 Shore Lane. I oppose the variance requested by the owners of 235 Shore Lane to reduce the setback to the sea for a retaining wall 2.4 meters high, submitted as BOV 2023-0198 and previously submitted as BOV 2023-0122 before being withdrawn. The current 15-meter setback was already reduced from the usual 30-meter setback. Additional reductions would create unacceptable ecological damage and habitat loss. The main reasons for opposition are as follows. Excuse me. First, no variance is required to meet the stated reasons for the variance request. The stated reason for the wall is to create a level garden area and to complete construction of the strata driveway. With respect to a level garden area, terraced level gardens could easily be created outside of the setback to the sea by building a few low conforming walls. The area within the 15-meter setback will have similar ecological value, whether sloped or level. With respect to the Strata driveway, the visitor parking area was previously built by Bowen Island Properties for the benefit of all Seymour Shores residents before construction began at 235 Shore Lane. The builder elected to over-excavate and partially remove the visitor parking area during construction. It would be simple to regrade the slopes to reestablish the visitor parking area. Therefore, no variance would be required to meet the stated reasons for the application. Terracing and regrading would be cheaper and easier than building a 2.4 meter high retaining wall to meet the stated reasons for the requested variance. Second, the submission contents are inconsistent with the stated reason for the requested variance. The site drawings posted in the public notice and the revised master plan for variance do not show a level garden area. Instead, the drawings illustrate a swimming pool, sloping garden areas, and other non-conforming elements planned within the setback to the sea, including a boardwalk, staircase, and decks. The additional submission materials explicitly state that a separate Board of Variance application will be submitted for the swimming pool. Therefore, the actual reason for the variance request appears to be to allow construction of a non-conforming swimming pool. Third, the planned non-conforming structures and other improvements shown in the submission package would require a major variance to be permitted by Bowen Island Municipality. The entire package should therefore be considered together rather than being submitted as separate applications when the overall impact is so large. From the Bowen Island Municipality website, major variances require a development variance permit application. The municipality should require the owners of 235 Shore Lane to use the appropriate process for the proposed major variance at 235 Shore Lane. Therefore, the planned variance is major rather than minor, and the variance committee should reject the current application on that basis. Fourth, the overall non-conforming plan violates the Seymour Shores strata requirements. The Seymour Shores strata bylaws limit improvements to specified footprints for the 8 waterfront lots to preserve appropriate scale, attractive and cohesive views from the sea, and a restored wildlife corridor for the abundant shoreline and near-shore wildlife of Seymour Bay and their nearby Bowen Island Ecological Reserve. The 2.4 meter high wall and 2 meter hedge would create a 4.4 meter barrier to wildlife movement within that ecological corridor. Finally, this property is one of 8 waterfront lots at Seymour Shores. If intrusions into the 15 meter setback to the sea were permitted at 235 Shore Lane, it would set a precedent for intrusions at each of the other 7 properties. The result would be a fragmented waterfront with limited ecological value. By retaining the full 15 meter ecological corridor, this committee and Bowen Island Municipality will be acting to reduce the habitat loss associated with ongoing development on Bowen Island, preserving our future legacy for future generations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Brent. Next, we have Darren Jennings.
Folks, thanks for taking the time. Darren Jennings, I reside at 575 Callan Point Road. Sit before here today wearing several hats, in fact 3. One as the original part of the original development team for the Seymour Shores, 2 as a current strata member and board member and council member, and 3 as an owner, together with an owner of some of the properties in the strata with some of my family members. So going back in time, a couple of things have been noted today. And the number one thing I need to reiterate in people's minds is you cannot take a legal definition from one document and transcribe it onto another. Those legal definitions are specific to each legal document that was put in place. So that's a number one distinction that needs to be clear. In terms of the history of the retaining wall, what happened when the Lewises purchased the property from Bowen Island Properties, they came to us and said, having started their design deliberations, and said, hey, we have a different idea than building tiered rock stacked walls, which we would have done as part of that sales contract and as part of the systems we've used in that location from the beginning. we've come up with this vertical wall idea, which would be an efficient way to retain the visitor parking area, plus allow us to get a little more creative with our garden space and pool. The pool and the garden space were all included originally as one application, and then they were separated over the course of the last 2 years. The application does a bad job of illustrating the costs associated and some of the hardships the Lewis's have sustained as a result of this process. Number one, they needed to hire a structural engineer, do the design for the wall in order to take that design and specifics to the Strata Council of the day to have it ratified and voted upon. The Strata Council held all of their meetings in concert with bylaws and the Strata Property Act, and it was unanimously agreed upon that this was an elegant and efficient way to do what was otherwise deemed to be supposed to be done. So then the easement was then registered on title, which required not only the survey costs and documentation, but also the legal costs and documentation to place that easement over top of the Lewis's land in order for the Strata Corporation to be insured into the future that if there was ever anything wrong with the wall, the Strata Corporation had the right to repair it or whatnot. So the procedures that unfolded post-sale were followed the municipal bylaws, the Strata Property Act, and the Strata bylaws. Unfortunately, there's been confusion within the neighborhood as to the definitions within the legal documents that are on title. And those definitions are not exactly the same for each document lodged on title. So I stand here before you as somebody that hopefully, if need be, can answer some questions if there are any. But to assure you that every measure of what could have been done as the former Strata was done, the Strata Council was done to make the Lewis's find a way to pursue their dream. That's about all I have to say at this point. Thank you.
Time for a question here?
Yeah, I think you can answer questions.
Hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lot of bulleted different points of this process. Thank you, Rick.
The visitor parking was part of the original plan, is that correct?
That's correct. Actually, that's a really good point you raised. Yes, it is. It was. And it was approved by BIM in, I can't remember the year when the subdivision was approved, within the 15-meter setback.
So so that is a benefit to the Strata, right? I mean, it's, I can't see that being a big benefit to this property.
Not at all. No,
People's headlights are gonna be right into the house. The comment earlier was about the slope of the property that went down there. There is a garage there with accesses from this side.
correct.
Are those parking within the garages part of the calculations for the overall development? I mean, there's so many cars that are required for the development. You have visitor parking, you have garage parking.
Correct.
So are all of those are part of the requirements of the.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct. Yes.
So I don't see too many cars in those garages, but I guess that's future, I suppose.
Yeah, there's only 2 houses constructed at this point on the waterfront and nobody living there permanently yet. So
You'd want to have some, in order to get into those garages, you have to have some reasonable level of space out there to get into them. Right, into them. If that wall was, I'm just thinking right now, if that wall was dropped down another 3 feet right now, I calculate that the parking going down to that wall would be about 15%. And I think that's a bit of a dangerous grade, and especially in wet weather or icy weather. Somebody's just going to hit that wall.
Oh, absolutely. And secondly, what's not apparent in the application or maybe to the public at large is that underneath that parking area and that thoroughfare between the garages to the, I guess would be to the east or to the west and the best parking to the east are all of the sewer, water, hydrotel and cable networks to power the whole south side of the island, including what's that structure that you may have seen when you were visiting where there were 2 snorkels sticking out of the ground. That's the sewer pump station for the whole south side of Bowen Island. So there is an immense amount of infrastructure under the ground that's not apparent if you're not part of the history of it. So the grades and the stormwater drainage that's designed right under that as well is dictated exactly by the slab height. And in conference with Fritz and Company when they wanted to do their design to make sure that the stormwater runoff was exactly thought through. So at the time, we set the grade elevations. Now I say we because my structural engineer assisted in the wall construction. We set the grade elevations to enable those two finished grade elevations to work together to make the stormwater work. So we worked very carefully to make sure we considered all existing infrastructure to make sure that we weren't going to have a dangerous situation or a situation whereby the utilities works would be compromised.
So what is that pipe that runs out there?
That's stormwater control.
That's stormwater.
So that basically is for the 100-year flood, and that is tied into a system that runs all the way beyond Seymour Bay Drive and all the way to the top of McIntosh Lane. So it's a key piece of the stormwater control system that's built inherently in the subdivision.
Does it just dump out the end?
It's dumped out. It goes through
That
several,
whole collection system comes out the end of that pipe?
not the whole collection section.
But I mean, a lot
portion of it, yes.
So it just into midair?
Well, no,
It's not directed.
right now it's been excavated back because the anticipation was when the reason the lock block wall was put in there, and that wasn't done without council resolution, by the way. The former speaker seemed to indicate that that was done illegally and without any regard. No, that was done with council approval. So now the given condition was anticipating the construction of the wall start. The wall start wasn't able to be started because of the bylaw change. And as a result, all of this is waiting, is in the condition it was when it was excavated for construction.
So if it was permitted before the bylaw change, and I think almost a year went by before the bylaw change, after being permitted by Strata Council and tacitly approved by the municipality because of the acceptance of the easement and the volumetric easement. Why does it now require a variance?
My understanding of this, and probably the applicant can speak more to that, my understanding was that the two items, the pool and the wall, were applied for together at first. And the pool became the difficult piece of that equation to come to grips with.
So is it
Also, before I forget, I'd also like to point out that there are similar retaining walls utilized in the neighbor's property, just up the hill, plus also in the municipal park, which is the Seymour Bay Park. There's a large retaining wall that you can barely see any longer because the brambles have grown up around it. So the idea of using vertical concrete retaining walls and somehow affecting ecology and so on is alarming to me because it's been used so successfully with no repercussions afterwards. The other thing that I'd like to point out in terms of the former commentary about the ecological impacts, there are actually covenants on title of all 8 waterfront properties by which they are mandated to return the foreshore to the existing vegetation. In other words, removal of invasive species like blackberries, gorse, and et cetera, and put back species like Oregon grape, salal, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the Lewises were part of that. And it is actually in the application, it is actually indicated as the PGL report, which is Pottinger Garrity, which is the environmental consultant. And all of the invasive species were stripped from the foreshore, and the plan was that they'd be replaced with the proper species under the guidance of PGL and their landscape architect. So unfortunately, some of the facts have been skewed again, I should say.
just while you're still up, Darren, the issue of access to the water, public access to the foreshore, sort of at the end of the proposed wall on completion, there's a detailed restoration plan that the applicant has provided, but we didn't see where it included comfortable access to the foreshore as part of that restoration plan.
So the strata plan and all of the documentations therein does not require an access to the ocean at that location. So there is an access to the ocean, of course, inherent in the Seymour Bay Park, which is immediately to the south of that area. And there is also access to the foreshore through driveway B. We call it driveway B. It's the second driveway farther to the north. You take that driveway down and there's a small space by which a visitor bench is supposed to be placed there. And we notified upon construction completion, BIM all those years ago, that it was ready for a bench and BIM never put a bench there. But those are the access points to the ocean. There was never one required under the Strata Act or under the Strata subdivision plan at Strata Lot H.
The access down at this particular point, spent a lot of time looking at that, and it's basically a straight drop off at that
Yes.
particular point. And there's, of course, there's water, but there's no beach. Maybe high tide when I looked at it, I don't know, but I don't know how you would actually get down there.
Heroic engineering and lots of expense.
Pardon?
Heroic engineering and lots of expense.
Yeah, getting access even down from there is that sort of a rock bluff in there, which, if anybody was to go down there, they would be right in front of the patio of the house, which seemed to be really ridiculous as far as privacy is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same consistent for all of those. And I should point out too, that there was no reduction from 30-meter point to 15-meter. The 15-meter allowance goes all the way back to the Crown Grant in early 1800s, or wherever Long Island was carved up. Forgive the expression. So there was no reduction from 30 to 15. It just happens to be that those particular areas on the south side of Long Island received at Crown Grant time, which is in the 1800s. Don't hold me to the date. That's what it was established as. So the former speaker tried to make it sound as if there was an allowance already given into 15 meters. That is not factual.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Our next speaker is Artuso.
Thank you. Good morning, all. My name is Rick Artuso. I am the owner of 243 Shore Lane, so which we straddle at D. I'm also speaking for the owner of 237, Mr. Man 239, and Rhodesia is 247. So we collectively own four of the lots adjacent to the applicants, and we just want to say that we're in support of the application. We see no issue with it. I don't know how it's going to create a level of disruption that those that contest it state, but I mean, everybody's entitled to have their say. We've looked at it from our perspective and being directly affected by the adjacent neighbors and having access to those visitor parking as well. And just want to say that those four lots, we are in support of the application.
Did you submit a letter to that effect?
I did not submit a letter. Can I? I should. No, I did.
Well, no.
Sorry, did I or
Pete, we have been considering the letters that we have received so far. My understanding was we've only received 3, 2 in support, in opposition, and 1 in support. So yours would be a fourth position.
Yeah.
4 different strata lots?
Correct. Yeah, we would have strata lot C, D, F, and G in support of the application.
Karen?
And just to further that, our family owns Strata Lot A and Strata Lot B as well.
So you would have 6 strata lots in support.
So you would be in support too, Darren?
Absolutely.
It'd be funny if he wasn't.
Mr. Fedbeck?
I'd just like to point out that the Strat Act, BC Strat Act requires a 75% approval, not a strata approval on a landscaping change. So if we count the numbers here, there's eight waterfront lots, and we know they're all going to go which way, and there's 3 lots behind them. The 3 lots behind would average to about 27.5%. So they would not get the 75% requirement by the Strata Act like this. I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have Ravinder. Last name. What's your last name?
Ready to give me this chance to speak. I have been associated with Bowen Island for the last 5 years. I'm a retired veterinarian living in South Surrey with the family living older daughter married in Gibson Island. And when I bought this lot, the intention was to move here and then make Bowen Island my home. But going through the construction process and all those years of COVID and post-COVID and the most difficult time in the construction industry, I have come to, and also this, I would say, phenomenal opposition of every single step that I've taken to construct a beautiful home, 239 Lot F, which is currently being marketed. I have come to realize, it's a great community to live in, but the amount of opposition and the amount of, I would say, whatever term we can use, is at every single step. I've come to realize, I'm better off where I'm living. I can visit here. I can make a beautiful home for some beautiful family to continue living here and make Bowen Island a home. This area is up for development and a beautiful place to live on this piece of earth. I think, this variance is certainly in good faith. It's going to benefit everybody. Every single resident and every single lot owner is going to benefit from it. Even the existing lot owners who are opposing this, because they would also have visitors. Visitor space is not just mentioned for lot G only or lot H only. So I strongly support this application, and I really request you guys to please provide the variance. Thank you.
Can I get your last name, please, Ravinder? Your last name, please.
M28
Pardon?
MAAN.
Thank you. Next, we have Pavitar.
I can speak for my team. I'm supportive.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. That looks like it's the end of our speakers today, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is Fritz going to be speaking at a different time?
Yeah, now he's the applicant.
Okay, so now the applicant has an opportunity to speak. Please come forward.
My name is Fritz de Vries, and I've been retained, it's probably more than 3.5 years ago, to work for Richard and Suzanne to get their house to 235 Shore Lane. Richard and Suzanne, they asked for a house to be accessible. Suzanne has a medical condition, and for that reason, she requested to have the use of a pool. I'm going to read what she wrote. It's now, the text is a bit old, but Suzanne wrote, the owners of 235 Shore Lane are two physicians. One who suffers from significant arthritis, for which her use of the pool for non-weight-bearing exercises and swimming laps is essential for optimal health, core management, and quality of life. I hope that this sounds convincing, as it is most definitely the truth. All the best, and with thanks, Suzanne. Now, I trust what Suzanne says. I tell you why. Suzanne Lewis, clinical professor and senior clinical investigator, Department of Medical Genetics, Faculty of Medicine, Chief Medical Officer and VP Research Pacific Autism Network, Vice Chair Autumn University of British Columbia's CWH campus, BC Hildens and Women's Health Center. And Richard, the other physician, is a surgeon at Lionsgate Hospital. Now, if they say that's the condition that Suzanne has, I believe. The presentation goes a bit like this. Richard and Suzanne Lewis fell in love with the beauty of Seymour Bay and purchased Block H, 235 Shore Lane. They hope to spend their retirement years in this attractive location. The house is designed to provide a level of accessibility to Suzanne Lewis, her medical condition. The garage is placed on the middle floor of the house to provide four-season safe access to the house. An elevator serves 3 level floors. Living, kitchen, dining are on the lower floor to provide level access to the waterfront garden and to provide a proposed swimming pool for Suzanne's medical condition. The development permit application through staff for council's consideration was submitted on May 5th, 2021. The shoreline retaining wall and proposed swimming pool were combined in this application, and it was recommended by the manager of planning and development. So we went forward with that development variance permit application based on staff recommendations. In that whole process, it's a development variance permit application. You would expect that the municipality, at least after 2 years, would be able to state clearly what needs to be varied. Our municipality has not identified specific land use bylaw regulations that need to be varied. 19 months after submission, Bowen Island municipality created a policy. It's a new policy that came out 19 months after submission. And that said that Bowen Island has its own method of measuring the height of a pool. And the way it's done is from the bottom of the pool to the top of the pool, which basically results in every swimming pool being a structure. If a structure is higher than 0.6 meters, a structure is defined as a structure that is higher than 0.6 meters. So when we submitted the development permit application and we calculated, according to the land use bylaw, what the height of the swimming pool is, it's an in-ground pool that is 0.35 meters above existing grade in its worst spot. It's mostly below existing grade. So from that point of view, we believe that we met the requirements for the pool, and it's not according to the municipalities' land use bylaw. It's not a structure according to the definitions of the bylaw, and in that setback, it's not a structure according to BOV regulations. So at the time that we submitted, we believe that the pool actually conformed to Bowen Island's land use bylaw. And at the time that we submitted, the 2.4 meters retaining wall also complied with Bowen Island's existing land use bylaw because it permitted a 2.5 meter wall. In the process, Bowen Island changed in this long process, I should say, we're talking now 2.5 years, Bowen Island changed the maximum permitted height of retaining walls in the 50-meter setback to 1.5 meters. So then it became an actual requirement for a variance application. The same for the pool. The regulation that was released 19 months after we submitted didn't exist. And now it suddenly existed. So now we have to apply for 2 Board of Variance applications. What I just pulled out, because it came up in this meeting, there is a covenant on title, which requires each owner of each lot to prepare an environmental report prior to submission of the building permit application. I was naive enough to believe that Bowen Island would take an interest in environmental restoration of the 50-meter setback of the sea. Unfortunately, that was not the case because although Bowen Island requested the report from PGL to facilitate the waterfront subdivision, this report is done in 2016 by PGL, and it sets the requirements for all 8 lots for environmental improvements. So it also says in this report, you've heard from some people something different. It actually says that the boardwalk to the sea and the stairs to the sea are meet the current Bowen Island land use bylaw because they're less than 2 meters in height above natural grade. The boardwalk to the wall, the boardwalk to the and the stair to the sea are actually recommended in the 2016 report of PGL. It says specifically for lot H and lot G. Lot H and G were highly polluted log sorting sites. The reason why they were so level, it was all backfill. The report, I can quote some parts, if you read the report, it means they say this is all totally polluted, all the backfill has to be removed. There was no support from Bowen Island properties to do that. At a certain point, standing there, machines on site. Sorry?
Bowen Island municipality.
Oh, sorry. There was no support from Bowen Island municipality, which I find very strange because I believe or expected that Bowen Island would be really interested in it. But the Bowen Island, I expect, simply didn't have the legal authority to administrate that covenant. And at a certain point, I phoned the municipality, actually phoned Danielle, and says there's a big machine here and we have to move on with the environmental improvements and we have to scrape the site. We have to remove all the polluted material that has to be removed. So that was done. And then as an architect, it didn't make me feel really good, but I had to make a decision and I did. So So I think what you have to realize is that for our clients, this has been really stressful, and it has caused lots of delays. It has caused additional construction costs. There were constant requests from Nakoon for me to clarify, how they could proceed with preparing for construction of the wall and the pool. The wall is specifically not designed by the structural engineer of the house, NOVA engineering has done the house. Linda Fong from Perma Consulting has done the geotechnical for the house, and the geotechnical for the retaining wall, and the structure for the retaining wall has been done by the consultants that we use for Bowen Island properties on purpose to make sure that it meets the same requirements. So there's some things that I noticed that were written, that were mentioned by some people opposed the application. And I read the comments from Ron, in item 3. That is regarding the environmental report. I think what I just explained now is probably sufficient to say that we actually did pay a lot of attention to environmental improvements. If you look at the detailed report, these reports, they don't feel free to cost $1,000. But anyway, so that report gives basically all the requirements in the 2021 report for lot H, which we want to implement, but at the moment construction has stopped. Then we also want you to know the landscape plan has been prepared, consisted by a registered landscape architect, Variance Durand, and that is coordinated with PGL to make sure that it meets the requirements from the environmental report. So some of the comments from people that live above is that they believe or they're afraid that the wall is high. They think the wall is 1.5 meters high, and we're asking to make the whole wall high. It's not true. The top of the wall stays exactly at the same location because it's coordinated with the grade of Shore Lane. The only thing that we do is we want to keep the grade low, which is already excavated because we have to remove the backfill. And we want to keep it low to give a larger level area that is accessible and can be used hopefully in the future for a pool which sits partially into the setback of the city. One end of the pool, the current proposal has one end of the pool 4 feet, 1.2 meters in the setback, and the other end of the pool is 2.4 meters in the setback. If any, I believe that it actually improves the views from those living above, because our client's garden will sit 3 feet lower. So if any, you can look out over it easier. What the wall does do, it provides a lot of privacy for both parties. Reason why the wall is all that it's also good to have the pool at the golf course side of the house is that it is completely, you cannot see it from any of the other lots. It's just basically on the side yard. So I feel we've been as consistent as we can in our application. If there's one thing that I underestimated is that I thought that at the time, Danielle would have proposed a development variance permit application to be able to process the environmental requirements and to be able to process specifically the request for my client. But both of them have not been addressed. Client has not shown any compassion towards Suzanne's need and have not taken any interest in the environmental proposed improvements. So at this point, for me as an architect, it's a really difficult point. The house is a walk-up stage. McCune has terminated their construction services. We have to look for a new contractor, a new construction schedule, a new construction budget. We're reviewing every freaking component of the building to see if we can get it back in a reasonable budget. You heard from some other people that the construction cost has escalated enormously, and combined with the unbelievable long processing time, we believe that, well, this variance simply has to be issued. And if not, I really feel that I have to address this issue with the Office of Council, which I would. And if you have any questions, so that's it.
The retaining wall is fully on this property, correctly? Is that correct?
It is set back about this much. You can see it in the section. Drew, can you maybe get the section on the screen in the application? There's a cross section over the wall.
Sure.
And you know what you can see that originally we proposed the wall right up against the property line. And we actually had it proposed with a concrete fence on it, like a 3-foot guard, to make sure that it would give us a level of safety. However, we reduced it to be level with Shore Lane. And you can see that the wall now is set back. I think it's about 2 feet.
So the dashed red line is the property line?
Yeah, it is. And the gentleman is standing, or the person is standing.
It's in the strata lot. I mean, outside the strata lot.
Yeah, so it stands on the visitor parking area, and it's not on the strata lot. And it's on Richard and Suzanne's property. There is a narrow band, about 2 feet wide, so they can plant a hedge. The height of the hedge is all controlled by the strata. I think it's shown a little bit higher in a drawing than it probably should be. I think it should be more like 4 feet, and then it's kept at that height. That gentleman is leaning against a picket fence that is on Richard and Suzanne's property and provides safety so people cannot fall over the edge.
And your temporary rock, it's actually giant block or Allen block wall, is still within the property line?
Yeah, no, so the block wall is on the right side, on the lot H side of the property line. It's their temporary stacked block wall. And I asked what what probably will be done and what I understand from the geotechnical and from the structural people is that they want to keep the wall just basically during construction, but remove the upper 1 or 2 blocks to make sure that there's good soil for planting.
And you're planning to, go ahead.
Do you plan to remove any of the existing wall?
Yeah, probably the top block and maybe the top 2 blocks, I don't know.
Okay, the inside of the wall will look the same as it is right now then?
No, the new wall is built against the temporary wall.
For and against it, not for.
And it's structurally independent. And if you look at the volumetric, the volumetric survey, right? You know, for the easement.
Yeah.
That gives enough width onto the property of Richard and Suzanne, and it also gives enough headroom so that the wall can be serviced by Bowen properties if Richard and Suzanne would not take care of the wall themselves.
So it would appear that the top, where the top block or 2 blocks are removed, you'd form the other side of the wall. Otherwise, it would be poured against the old wall.
Well, you know, that's kind of a bit of a structural question. Of course, walls, they call it like one-sided formwork. I don't know if they do that. During construction, if they feel it's better to remove the whole wall, they can do that too. But the wall is structurally independent. It's intended to be structurally independent.
Well, it would be very expensive and disruptive to remove any part of that parking area in order to get at.
I don't know if that's true, because what you see there is all done by the excavators that were, I mean, the block wall is placed, right? And it's backfilled.
But it's holding up the back, what's behind it.
Yeah, but the backfill is placed by Nakun Construction. They excavated sufficiently to put the wall in and they backfill up against it. So I mean, if the wall will be removed, the temporary wall will be removed or not, I think that is a decision from geotechnical, from structural, and probably with costing taking into effect as well.
I think Darren has a comment while you're speaking.
Okay, to jump in first?
Yeah, for sure.
So just by way of clarification, the lock block wall is placed there for 2 reasons. Number 1, to enable construction, so that there's working space for the workers to be in there to put the footing in, and the footing is about a 5-foot wide footing, and then the independent wall that would be based. The intent of the geotech engineer is to leave that in place, take the top 2 lock block layers off, which would allow them complete backfill and drainage to be put behind the wall for hydraulic purposes, and then a full compaction of new fill to enable the parking surface asphalt to be completed and drained in accordance with the stormwater plan. So it's all of that, mind you, as well, was done with the knowledge of the utility companies that have interest in the structures behind that wall, and with the strata and with Bowen Island property. So again, there was no shortcuts taken there.
I think a related question that I have is to clarify what you had said earlier, Darren. Can you just confirm that there are extensive services under that strata parking area?
Absolutely. There's sewer, hydro, water, TEL. There's 3-phase converted hydro that powers the pump station adjacent, and the generators and the brain that controls that unit there.
So
plus the services continue through the municipal park to create a loop to the golf course clubhouse area.
So would you say that regrading that to the old original grade is not an option?
Absolute impossibility, because the stormwater culvert is the highest piece of that infrastructure in place. It's the water pipes, the sewer pipes, the hydrotel and cable pipes, and all of that are below that.
There is a photo of the agenda that shows the line. You remember that? Okay, I just wanted to point that it was like that before they dug it up. It was down to that grade. Not at the parking.
No.
There's a picture. There's a picture.
Here, I can find
No,
it.
that was before the services went in though.
Oh, no, this.
That's the point.
That was in, the pump station was in, all of that was in, everything was operating. The only thing they did was dig it out to get rid of the road that they used for construction, and then they put the retaining wall. That was the only time.
So you're saying it's deeper than,
That's an
It's way
absolute,
deeper, and it's not, it's, the picture's there.
absolute falsehood.
That's false.
well, no, I mean, this is, we're speaking about factual issues here.
Yeah.
So we don't have to argue about them.
I'm not gonna argue.
And the developer probably knows where the services are, so
I can provide
could you
you a
clarify,
detailed survey if you wish.
could you clarify verbally right now, what's your answer to Mr. Fettbeck?
100%. The general service locations are 1 meter below surface grade of the existing garage slab. That would be hydro, telephone, cable, sewer, water. That all is a major backbone that runs right down that driveway. You can see the ICs, the inspection chambers, and the Nelson boxes and everything right within that roadway. In that same area is a wash station, which has water lines that go perpendicular to those main duct banks to provide a clean out place for the pump station. So when in service, it can be washed and cleaned and pumped up into the sewer treatment plant. In addition, on top of all of that, so one level higher and just a narrow distance between the finished surface distance is the stormwater pipe, the aforementioned pipe that handles the entire south side of that storm system. And you can see that in the ground sitting there. So for somebody to say that there aren't services at that elevation is absolutely ridiculous.
Hey, Mr. Fettbeck, also,
Is that the photo you're referring to?
Yeah, there's a photo.
Yeah, that's the
You can see
photo.
The slope coming down, but there was also landscaping, there was original landscaping plan, there's an original services plan that's gonna show the elevation all below, because that was the original intended finish. That's what's shown on, that's on the disclosure statement, that's on the landscaping plan, that's what we had, and that's what we bought. So anything past that, that's why it doesn't, that's how it could be different. So. I didn't take that photo. That's right from a real estate photo. You see the slope of land, how you could drive down there, the cars parking there.
And that real estate photo was not taken at the time of the disclosure statement.
That slope was there when I got the disclosure statement, Darren. That's been there since the day
But that is not the slope that they were.
Not talking to each other, talking to the board.
I agree.
Chair.
A more flat space.
You know, the steps control.
I think we should give them the time to consider.
They can take time and yeah, we've got time. Everyone has time. And then they need to speak through you, the
Yes.
chair.
Okay.
If there's anything else in the package you'd like me to highlight, I can do that.
The garage is on you.
Me too, just, you know.
Okay.
I'd like to make one more comment because you put on the site plan, it's A02. Is this the Vectorworks drawing?
Is that in the presentation or the agenda?
That should be in the presentation.
Yeah, it's in your package. Yeah, it's the one. If you look at that drawing, and there's a rectangular pool on that drawing. And as you can see, that one corner of the rectangular pool is actually not in the setback of the sea, and the other corner is. But if you look at the side of the pool, it's close to the retaining wall. That is all outside of the 15-meter setback. The wall in that area is also outside the 50-meter setback. So if you look at the wall that needs to be built, the first, I'm not going to say half, but let's say 40% of the length of that wall that needs to be built is actually not in the 15-meter setback of the wall, of the sea, and can be 2.5 meters high because it meets the bylaw. At that point, the wall would suddenly have to be 1.5 meters high. And the only thing that we would have to do, I guess, is raise the grade 3 feet, which is a bit awkward, so close to the pool. We will build a retaining wall there, and then the wall is 1.5 meters high, and our client has less use of the land without making any difference to anybody else. So the reason why it was asked for is that there was an anticipation, an expectation at the time that the pool would be approved. And this goes back to the basics of this application are that somebody is asking for a house that is accessible. There's tons of money spent on doing that. You know, Darren Jennings, I have asked him, can we have level access to an attached garage that is positioned in the middle of the house? It sits above their living room. Have you ever built a garage in a single-family house that sits above the living room? Well, there it is, right? To provide accessibility for Suzanne. She has at the moment exactly the same elevator in their house in West Vancouver. It's a round, pneumatic, glass elevator. It fits perfectly in the tight space that we have available. The framing is done to accommodate, right? As I said before, all the floors are level. The lower floor, the living, kitchen, dining are on the lower floor to provide access to a level garden. Most of the garden will not be level because we're implementing an environmental report that asks that the 50-meter setback of the sea is as much as possible restored to its original condition. There is no coastal bluff area there at the moment. I met Kevin Cooder from EGL there. He's hard to get, but I got him there. And I asked him, can you please outline the coastal bluff area? He said, sorry, Fritz, there is nothing like that there. It all needs to be restored, right? And our client agreed to do that. Are there any more questions for the applicants?
I just would, Mr. Fedback claimed in his submission that the house is for sale, construction has been terminated, and the implication is that the Lewises are no longer interested in moving in.
Well,
is that correct?
I think everybody can draw their own conclusion. You can draw the conclusion that you want. I just know that we have two owners that are highly stressed and do not know how to proceed. At this moment, construction has been stopped because Nakoon Construction cannot get their budget at the moment at a point that is acceptable to them. They're looking for another contractor, maybe with the help of Darren, who knows enough people that may be helpful, right, to actually resume construction. At that point, the question is, can they accommodate a simple prefab pool in the construction budget? And I can tell you one thing, if that is the case, then Richard and Suzanne will live there. But the idea, they put it for sale because they just didn't know what to do. They were exhausted.
So is the house for sale or not?
It's difficult to sell a house that's under construction. The HPO, Home Protection Office, does not allow a house to be sold without having a general contractor who takes responsibility for the home protection, basically the home warranties, the 10-5 interior home warranties, right? So they cannot sell a house without having it in place. Also, when somebody buys a house like this, they have to know they want to know how much cost is involved to complete it. In fairness to Richard and Suzanne, they've done their utmost best to get this house built, with the house being accessible, and the pool is part of that. Now, if somebody else would want to buy it and would look for the same things, they would be good enough as well, for me at least. You know what I mean? But the idea that it is for sale and therefore they're not going to live there, I don't know. You would have to ask them.
Thanks. Any other questions for the applicant?
Tristan, this agreement of this wall with the strata, the agreement was made with the strata at a 2.4 4-meter high wall. And approximately 9 months later, the municipality changed to 1.5, is that correct?
Yes, but I understand, and maybe Darren can correct me, that the strata uses the same definitions as are used in the land use bylaw. For instance, if they refer to height in the same height as the land use bylaw, and so I don't think it simply meets the bylaw. It meets the land use bylaw, and there are no specific restrictions, from the strata. We have submitted everything to the strata. Like we have strata approval for everything. That strata approval was given, I can give you the date of that on my computer. But so we first submitted to the strata, we got strata approval relatively quickly. And then we submitted for the development variance permit application because Danielle thought it would be better to combine the two and take one application to council. And then 2 years later, Danielle and I had a meeting, which was probably less than half a year ago. And then I said it's probably better to split the application. And I asked Danielle, would it be better to have 2 separate development variance permit applications, or would it be better to go to the Board of Variance? And then Danielle says that Board of Variance application will be faster, and after having a 2-year delay, that encouraged me to proceed with the application. At that time, I was the chair of the Board of Variance, and although theoretically I only had to step out of the meeting, I felt that we didn't want to have any perceived conflict of interest, so I resigned from the Board of Variance.
Mr. Fitback?
Just wanted to point out some things on strata when they talk strata approval. There is a current dispute going on within strata that some of the owners, myself, have filed a grievance with the CRT, Civil Resolution Tribunal, because of the way strata was acting. Right? Strata does not have approval by the Strata Act to make deals on their behalf. They don't. That's in the Strata Act, and there needs to be a 75% approval on any landscaping changes. Once again, that's in the Strata Act, and these are all being disputed. So I just want to clarify that there is a dispute going on in that. So there's not, I'm on Strata Council as well, and we were on Strata. There were 3 of us upper houses had all resigned from Strata because we felt we were in conflict with Bowen Island Properties. So there is a dispute going on. That should be noted. I just didn't want you to think that it's all good.
Darren, do you have a comment on that?
Certainly, and the dispute has nothing to do with this retaining wall. Absolutely nothing to do with this retaining wall. The retaining wall was unanimously agreed to in its day by the owners of the Strata plan, the Strata Corporation, in its day. 100%. So there's past your 75%. So this has nothing to do, this comment right now has absolutely nothing to do with the application before you. That was fully done by the Strata, within the bounds of the Strata Act, the Strata bylaws, and by the council and owners of the day, full stop. This approval was granted. And that's why you see it registered on title of the Lewis's property. You can't put an easement on title at land title's office without going through the proper channels in the Strata Corporation process under the Strata Act. And you'll also notice that Bowen Island Properties is party to that agreement as the developer of that property. Because we still hold an interest as BIP, putting my third hat on for the day, as a covenant holder by which we decide under the covenant what can or cannot be built, along with landscape plans, along with everything else that these people under Fritz's guidance have gone through from day one. So the checks and balances through this are covenant holder, Bowen Island Properties, going through plans. Municipality going through plans and going through the checks and balances. National Home Warranty going through checks and balances. Building permits, like the amount of oversight on this project cannot be more fulsome from the day the request came. And that's all I have to say.
If we can do discussion amongst yourselves, and I also have something prepared on the screen, if you'd like to talk about the resolution. If you're not there yet, and you'd like to discuss the rules.
Yeah, so I think that if there are no more comments from the peanut gallery, maybe that's not the right term. I guess we should open our own discussion for among the board. Yeah. And Wendy, maybe you'd like to make a comment or ask some questions or?
Well, there seems to be a lot of evidence that all of the wall in particular, which is the main issue here, the height of that wall was already there. And by building a new one, it's just making it look nicer. I mean, as an architect, looking at that wall, and also it will provide more structure. I'm concerned about anything that's precedent setting to any of those other properties along the waterfront. Is the 15-meter setback something that is in place and it's legal, not the 30-meter?
Yes, so this zone has a 15-meter setback.
It does have a 15-meter setback. So my concern is setting a precedent for any kind of pool that's within the 15-meter setback being allowed again because of this being allowed. And that's the pool, not the wall. And I understand the pool really doesn't have a variance yet. And talking about the pool is not really part of this issue.
No, it's not.
That's correct. Yep.
It's just the wall itself.
All we're focusing on here is the wall
So
itself.
the setback is legal to the wall, and the wall height, to me, is legal.
It was legal when we submitted.
And then, but you're, by dropping it to the 1.5 meters that is required now, is going to create a problem for all the services that are underneath the road. It won't? If you go down to 1.45 meters?
The answer to that question was correct, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so,
think he's misunderstood.
If you drop the wall and grade down to the top of the 1.5 meter wall, you're interfering with,
a lot of
services.
services that are existing there. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Okay.
and that would be an unreasonable, I mean, it's an impossible condition.
Maybe Wendy, one thing if I may add, that the mixed track, the whole line does not have an environmental development permit area.
Sorry?
Well, island does not have an environmental development permit area over the waterfront. So the 50-meter setback is a setback, like any other setback. And in the setback, you're not allowed to build structures.
Right.
And then you have to go to the definition of the
Of what a
land.
structure is.
What a structure is.
And you just put this, we use the formula from the Local Government Act on the criteria the board needs to consider that would structure the resolution. So I've just put it on the screen to support board members' discussion points.
Thank you. Yeah, those were my only comments.
So I was just, I spent some time out there looking, walking around, and I think that it's very difficult, some of the roads around there right now as they are. And there's many walls there right now, both concrete walls and stone rock walls that are over 2.4 meters in the development. Lots of them. In order to get proper access to this garage, and when you're pulling in and out of a car, you don't want much of a slope on there. If you were to drop the wall down to the 1.5 meters, it would be such a slope for those parking spaces that it'd be very, very difficult for it to work. And I think what sounds like what's happened is the developer decided that this needed a retaining wall in order to provide the parking that was necessary in the strata for visitor parking, and to keep it at a relatively flat situation, which is the way to do it. And that works perfectly in there. If you drop it down another 3 feet, I think you've got a slope that is very, very difficult, especially in this area. So they went out and got the approval of the strata at that point and documented. And it seems to me it's a reasonable approach. I don't know, who paid for the parking, who paid for the retaining wall and.
The new retaining wall?
Yeah, the backfill in there right now. And
Our client. But I think they have an agreement.
Yeah, the Lewises have paid for the existing works, as I said earlier, the cost for survey, the cost for legal, the cost for structural design of the wall.
Yeah.
So they paid 3 consultants
Yeah.
to put this in place in concert with a strata approval to do so.
Yeah.
And it was only because of the time delays of the pool application as to why a permit wasn't granted for it to be able to be built. And then during that delay is when the land use bylaw height restrictions changed.
Yeah.
So in terms of hardship, I would say there's more to be added to what's explicit in the application language.
Yeah, I'm still not clear why the variance is required if the city was involved, if the municipality was involved in the permitting process, which included full permitting by the strata council.
Sorry, to be clear, the strata approval process is separate from the municipal permit process. Like people gain strata approval as a separate step from gaining like a building.
But the municipality approved the 2.4 meter height before the bylaw change.
Right. So prior to the bylaw change, we would have issued a building permit for a retaining wall of 2.4 meters in the setback to the sea. But given the bylaw change, then we're not able to issue a building permit for
without a variance.
Without a variance within the setback to the sea.
Okay. My own comments here are, first of all, that from the standpoint of impact on the surrounding properties and specifically the 3 houses across the street, the wall itself won't be visible to those properties. It's only visible from the common area in front along the waterfront. So I'm not sure what the current residents would have to be upset about, other than general condition issues that they have with other parts of the relationship with Bone Island Properties, which have sort of, looks as though they've sort of come down to an objection to the wall, because that's the issue at hand. When we met on site, though, it was pretty clear that the site is still rough, partly because of the unfinished condition of the house and wall and the absence of the screening, which itself won't further limit people's view from above in the direction of the water, the foreshore, the water's edge. But it seems to me that those conditions completed will actually enhance the property, and that those enhancements and the existence of the parking, which seems clearly can't be removed or regraded, are all benefits to the strata owners as well as the applicant. Does anyone object to that comment, or does that make sense?
I just object to the fact that I think the rules of strata should be respected in the law. There's laws in the province we should follow. And it does, once the covenant has no meaning, the renter have no meaning for retaining wall, pool, then the houses can be built bigger, they can hang outside that area too. I mean, there was a defined area, and that was given to us on a covenant that was protected for some reason, right? I wasn't the developer.
But we're not setting a precedent that's not subject to further application and review in the future. So, while we may be, I'm not sure this sets a precedent at all, actually. It doesn't appear to me that it does.
I think they've had their opportunity to speak, and it's about the board speaking now.
Right. I
Because-
did ask, I did invite,
I know, I
I did invite
know.
more incoming, so,
Yeah.
sorry.
I wasn't, it just trying to stay on the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our deliberations, we have a list of 5 criteria that we normally subject these decisions to at our previous board meetings. And I could suggest that we address them individually and see where we go with them. The first one, which has been challenged actually already this morning, is the proposed variance minor? And I wonder, Rick, do you have comment on that? And Wendy, do you have comment on that?
Yeah, it's a retaining wall, which is necessary in order to provide visitor parking, which is part of the strata properties. And I think it's a minor item as far as variance is concerned. Not that particular area.
I agree. I think it's, the wall has to be there.
I believe that it is minor, and as to the setback variance, we could apply the same test to that. Is that minor also?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing, right, the setback variance?
Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's
so
what we're
we are
dealing with.
deciding is the setback variance minor?
Yes, and in my opinion, the setback variance in this case is minor.
And do we need maybe more words to say that in like describing the size or just minor? Okay.
You do the whereases.
Yeah, I'm doing a whereas. So the first one, whereas the variance is minor, I've heard 3 minors from you guys. Let's move on to the next one. I've got a notification. Is on my-
Okay, no, I'm going to follow my list
Oh,
because these
sure.
are the criteria you have given us in the past.
That's fine.
We don't understand the new stuff at all.
Okay.
So, Fritz is actually in his position as chairman in the past, has been our best instructor.
Okay.
So is the intent of the bylaw, number 57, 2001, upheld with respect to preservation of neighborhood character? That's another question.
It doesn't affect the neighborhood. It doesn't affect the views. And we've been out there, we've looked at it, so.
You agree?
I agree.
I agree.
The intent of the bylaw, so the intent of the bylaw was to
Whereas the
protect-
intent of the bylaw is upheld with respect to preservation of neighborhood character. And number 3, is there is there a negative impact on neighboring properties? And as my observation is that because the wall is not visible, walking around the property to visitors or to the neighboring properties, I believe that there is no negative impact on the neighboring properties. In fact, there's a benefit to all the neighboring properties and the whole strata corporation and its owners because of the provision of the parking and the resolution of the driving area and, which we didn't know before the meeting, containment of all those services. Do you, anybody agree with that? Okay.
So the benefits are about,
Whereas no negative impact on neighboring properties. There is no neighboring impact on neighboring properties. Has the applicant hardship been demonstrated? So the applicant has outlined the negative impacts having to do with the lengthy delay. And the lengthy delay has been complicated by jurisdictional interactions which appear to have made it impossible to move forward without the variance, meaning specifically that the after the change in the height in the bylaw, the variance is required in order to proceed. Is that correct? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? So I would say that that alone is a demonstration of sufficient hardship. And then the developers raised a number of other hardship overlays that have been imposed on the applicant. So certainly there's been lots of hardship endured. And
So,
yeah, I'm not warehousing, but
I'm whereasing, so the Wendy and Rick comment on that. Are you finished with your?
I'm finished.
Okay, hardship comments? Rick, do you agree there's
Yes.
hardship?
Yeah.
And the,
okay, so I agree.
It can just say whereas there is not due hardship. That's fine. We're just talking about whereas.
And the final test question here, is there a negative impact on the natural environment? And I think the discussion has been consistent in that there's no demonstrated impact, negative impact on the environment. That would be my observation.
Is there some repair work to be done in that area, down the front area there? Is there some?
Well, there is a report from, as I said earlier, there's a report from ETL.
you're not supposed, we're done with the people now.
Well, I can comment, unless your staff comment.
I was just gonna say, as part of the application, the applicant submitted their PGL environmental report and remediation plan. So in the site plan with the variance, there's the essentially the landscaping plan remediation work.
Does that become part of the building permit? Is it imposed?
It was submitted as part of the building permit. The board could say as a condition of the variance is, completion of that landscaping plan.
I certainly think that would be appropriate. And I think that would be a benefit to the Strata Council and the complainants.
Is it foreshore remediation work?
Right. Submitted as whatever reference plan specifically we're talking about. Is, are we recommending or requiring as condition of the variance? Daniel?
Yeah, you can require it. So I guess I would say that the rehabilitated natural habitat shown in the plans be completed. Or you say substantially completed, like presumably you're not saying every piece of it, but you're saying that that's part of your finding that it's not impacting the environment because it's not, the end state is not to be a wall and a gravel yard, that you anticipate there being the plantings that are shown in the plans.
Well, not on the lot, but as the restoration of that adjacent area, right?
Sorry, the strata lot itself, like the lower portion of the strata lot below the wall.
Right, but my understanding was that color wash drawing seemed to extend out past the strata lot into adjacent area where the 45-degree slope to the water starts off the parking.
Right.
At the end of the pipe, at the end of the drainage pipe.
Yes, strata lot H does continue south for a portion, but you could only impose conditions on this property on 235 Shore Lane. So it wouldn't have effect on improvements to the common property. So it's part of this variance.
So how do we make sure that any rehabilitation of that natural landscape is done now?
Off the strata lot, I assume you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, B2.
You have a comment from the peanut gallery?
I think so. I mean, despite the administrative warnings I'm getting to my left.
Just for clarity,
So
Yeah, please.
the intent of the covenant that's registered on the 8 waterfront lots is that work is done as part of the development of and the strata lots actually go beyond the 15-meter boundary. So it's down to the high water mark. So basically, what has already been done on strata lot H is the removal of all the invasive species with the anticipation that the reintroduction and rehabilitation process would start. So everything that you viewed on the site, other than where, at high tide mark, is the responsibility under that covenant of the homeowner to do that work.
And it's reviewed by the existing strata then, to make sure that they've followed through?
Not by the strata, the covenant is in favor of, I believe it's BIM. I'd have to look at the legal docs.
So BIM has to follow up to make sure that
To
this
enforce it.
I believe so, I'm not 100% certain.
I think I provided in some of the documents I gave you that in the strata, our strata plan for the strata, it says that strata is responsible for enforcing the covenant. It's there in black and white, it's in the strata plan. So strata is supposed to enforce it.
And I don't know how you distribute the cost of that among the strata lots involved, but
No, not to.
Presumably there's a
not to
system.
do the work, but to make sure that it's done.
make sure it's done.
Is that a timeline?
There is no timeline there, and so I would expect that if it's raised and it remains an eyesore, and a strata member can raise it, then it can be addressed at strata council.
So it's only if it hasn't been resolved, like it isn't done.
Yeah, as it stands now, there's, only 2 houses that have been
Built.
constructed or partially constructed and 1 excavated. So until such time, that would be a purview of the strata council.
yeah.
Still want to keep a comment in there?
Fritz wants to say something, or is it?
Fritz?
Well, yeah, because the only thing I want to say is that the originally a development variance permit application was submitted to staff, right, to the council, not a board of variance application. And that was a comprehensive plan that included everything, right? The pool, the wall, stairs, boardwalk, everything, and the landscaping, right? So our client would complete the landscape when they know what they need to complete. So they will, assuming that they proceed with the project, they will submit for a board of variance application. All of that landscape logically is done after that because the site is still
So
disturbed.
they would get occupancy before the landscaping was finished.
Occupancy, that is maybe a question for Danielle, because occupancy is more like a municipality responsibility. We normally, as architects, because we are constantly asked to submit for schedules, we normally give a schedule CA, which means that our services as the coordinating professional have been complete. That's all we do.
So I'm reading what Steph is writing here.
So this is the part we're discussing. No demonstrated adverse impacts on the environment. However, the board would encourage the foreshore remediation work, specifically rehabilitating the natural habitat, to be conducted as indicated in the development plans expeditiously.
Yeah, I think that's better than making it a requirement of our approval. Because,
Anyway,
hmm?
it has to be done, but anyway.
Yeah, it has to be done anyway. So this is just another
They just want to
overlay.
include it. Okay, reading on that one, all 3 okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you gonna finish writing this or should we have something to vote on?
You want to see a photo?
Of what?
Vote on.
We can vote, right?
Vote on that photo.
Nope, I've got a couple more. I know you're referring to Fritz's, but we've got a couple more that are included in the staff report we can look at. Do we think, right?
Yeah.
Is the development appropriate, do you feel? So the question for the Local Government Act included is to ensure that the variance is not causing inappropriate development.
Yeah, and again, we're limiting our purview here to the wall itself, not anything to do with the pool. So, yes, I believe it's appropriate. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I agree. Okay. So, inappropriate development is not being proposed. Okay, and then have the permitted uses or densities been varied?
No.
Obvious, okay. Have not been varied. And we have one more up here. No. That's it. Would you like me to read it out or? would you
Sure.
like To read it out?
I can't seem to follow it to read it out, so why don't you read it out?
Hold on, we haven't done the last part. Therefore be it resolved that the Board of Variance application be allowed, not allowed, or allowed under X conditions.
Say aloud.
Allowed. Okay. Whereas an application to reduce the minimum setback from the natural boundary of the sea for a retaining wall at 235 Shore Lane has been submitted to the Board of Variance, and whereas the variance is minor, and whereas the applicant and notified people have been heard by the Board of Variance, and whereas there's undue hardship, and whereas the variance is not proposing inappropriate development, I'll fix that.
I just go back a second. The hardship part.
Sorry. Yes, there is.
And whereas undue hardship has been demonstrated rather than there is, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
Okay, you guys?
Inappropriate development is not being proposed. There are no demonstrated adverse impacts on the environment. However, the board would encourage the foreshore remediation work, specifically rehabilitating the natural habitat, to be conducted as indicated in the development plans expeditiously. There is not a substantial negative impacts to neighbors' use and enjoyment of the land. Permitted uses or densities have not been varied. The intent of the bylaw is upheld with respect to preservation of neighborhood character. Therefore, be it resolved that the variance application number BOV 20230198, 235 Shore Lane, be allowed.
Okay, so I think those 5 bullet points should be, whereas is parallel to the preceding, no reason to have those.
Would it be okay if I just did that offline?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, thank you.
I just think if we're gonna vote, it ought to be understood, those aren't subsets, those are actually
Okay,
equal to the others.
I'll do that offline and.
Okay, so I think, I'm not sure how to introduce this idea, but, yeah, could I have somebody to move to accept these resolutions? Okay, and Rick, will you second? Okay. Moved and seconded, and should I read it out again?
No.
Okay.
Any last comments?
And any last comments?
Not from.
Not from the peanut gallery?
No.
Any local comments? Any meaningful comments? Okay, so I'm in favor also,
All in favor?
and all agreed? And any opposed? And motion carried. Hooray, Fritz is free again. Thank you.
Adjourned? Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned, oh, do I say that? Meeting adjourned, thanks. Yeah, get good at this something.
Oh, okay, great job. Oh, I got to stop.